right. Well, welcome to Off the Cuff podcast on Sunday night, Sunday. And look, tonight we're going to talk about a few topics. As you guys saw from the thumbnail, I did catch an article about this gentleman, and we're going to talk a little bit about him too, because it's important to talk about everybody. And that's the one thing that everyone needs to understand with free agency looming and the draft looming. Is there is a lot to talk about. You guys are going to get a ton of opinions thrown at you. You're going to get a ton more mock drafts, and you're probably going to get twice as many as you did last season for your dear old Detroit Lions. Because as I see in the comments already, there's confidence. People have confidence in the Detroit Lions, and they should. And Robert says, man, I've seen so many mock drafts. It's crazy. It is. But you have to remember, too, is we're also a month behind. So I think, a few people have some pent up energy, as to this off season getting started a little bit late. And you know what? I'm good with it. I'll start the off season every year in February if we could. I'd love it. So, all right. Shout out to everybody in the chat already. Robert Welch, Donkey Kong. That's a new name. Welcome in to the chat tonight. And Randy P. Randy P's in the house. Better the Hunt's in the house. Good evening to everybody. Welcome to Off the Cuff. So Randy P says, after what Brad did last year, I'm not watching mock drafts. Brad will take us to school. He does. But you know what? If you would have watched my show, you would have seen those first 5 draft picks that we took called right here. And that's no BS. I posted the receipts just a couple of weeks ago. And no, I don't normally do that, but I kind of had to, because there's some people that they like to throw spaghetti at the wall, and see kind of what sticks. And then there's some people that are just full of you know what I mean? So you hear stuff being popped out all the time. This guy's coming and this trade's happening, and it's not happening. We're still a little bit far away from things really starting to happen. So there's no reason to talk about, trades and this, that, and the other thing, when you can't do anything right now, really. I mean, yes, you could trade a player. It has to be a very special circumstance, though. There's a lot of things that have to get met before that can happen. So, all right, let's see what everyone's saying here. Lone Spoon 77, that's a new name. Welcome to Off the Cuff tonight. Better the Hunt says the mock draft stuff is fun, but it just gets me spun up. I'm very interested in free agent market, though. I'm going to attack it heavy this week. I spent all weekend redoing graphics, as you've seen. Did you guys like the new intro? So that's going to be the breaking news intro. And as we get some free agency breaking news, as I get some information from some people that I know, I will use that intro solely to break news, but I wanted to share it with you guys tonight. And on Tuesday morning, we're launching a new intro for Rocked On Syndicate Rise and Grind morning show, Tuesdays and Thursdays right now, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you guys haven't checked it out yet, please do us a favor and check out sportspider.com. That's sportspider, SPYDER.com. Get all of your sports in one place. I showed you guys the other day how you can completely customize this website to give you everything that you're looking at every day on multiple sources and multiple platforms, all in one. And it's a great layout. The guys over there at Sports Spider did an excellent job. So shout out to Dallas. You guys did an amazing job on the website. So let's get rolling. Let's talk about first rumor mill, as I like to call it. The rumor mill is so full right now. Lions tapped to add a productive veteran. Well, I think we all know that. I think everyone is under the assumption that we're going to be adding somebody to this defensive line. And, oh, wait, I'm sorry. Before I do that, I got to get this thing off my screen real quick. I want to show you guys something on the YouTube. All right, so this is my YouTube page. As I said, I did a lot of things this weekend with graphics, and I made a few changes to the YouTube. This heading here, it's not just talk, it's Rocked On. That will end up changing because this is going to go Lions dedicated channel. Rocked On Podcast Network is moving to its own channel where everything else will be advertised over there. So this name is going to change. So don't be surprised. The logo will not. Then the logo will stay the same. But I want to show you guys what I did here. You're going to have a new video popping up here once a week, new highlight video. It'll be, you know, the best video of that week. For you is delivered to you by YouTube. So they create all of this. They share all of these videos. I don't. Here are both channels. Please subscribe to Rocked On Syndicate Sports if you guys would like to catch our morning show. And this is where I started dropping in some new categories. So we've got 2024 NFL draft prospects. Looks like a couple of videos got dropped in here that shouldn't, but I'll fix that. And then we've got free agency. So if you're looking for just videos on the draft, go here. If you're looking for just videos and free agency, go here. We have a new section, breaking news. That's going to be all new breaking that's happening around the league, happening for the Lions. All your videos. And then we got multiple playlists. So if you're looking for, you know, all sorts of things, past live streams, upcoming live streams. So if you want to get in the know, hit the notification button right here. And that's something else I'll remind everybody is that I've noticed that YouTube has been doing some things on their back end and they've been kicking people out of their notifications. So if you like to get notified for Rocked On Podcast Network, Rocked On Syndicate, or any of our collaborators, please go and check their channels and make sure that you are notified. All right, enough of the fluff, right? Let's get to it. Lions tapped to add a productive veteran defensive player. And I would agree. I think that the market, like I said the other night, is kind of changed for the Detroit Lions. And what I mean by that is the cap that we thought that we were going to have has shrunk. We thought that we were going to have close to 70, maybe a little north of 70. But we didn't take into consideration some of the dead cap that was going to happen with the void years, which was about 12 million. And then you had another hit with the voided contracts, which we'll talk about in a minute, 5 days after the Super Bowl. So the cap is now dwindled down to like, 45, maybe 50. And that's before Brad Holmes does his magic. If we do extend Jared Goff, we might save on cap this year because they're very smart with how they construct contracts. Even renegotiating Tracy Walker's deal, and you might save a few million off of that deal. Not much, but it's you know, enough to get another guy in. There's plenty of guys that they can work with. You know, Taylor Decker's one, Frank Ragnow's one. Not saying that they need to or will, but there's options. There's plenty of options. If they need to go get money, if they have to do something, they can do it. But right now, if we left it alone, the Lions are sitting somewhere between that $45 and $50 million mark. And that's just not enough to get everything done that I think everybody would like to get done. So hold on to your hats. It's going to be an interesting offseason. So first topic here is heavy.com, and found this article. I believe it was written by Jeff Risdon. So shout out to Jeff Risdon. But he said that the Lions are making some significant improvements to their defense in 2023, or we did make some significant improvements in 2023. But the pass rush was often a point of inconsistency. You think? I mean, yeah, big problem up front. A lot of pressure, no results, or very few results. So I don't think it's any secret that we want to go and attack the defensive front, but how are we going to do it? The other day, I was a little bit worried that at pick 29, we're going to miss out on a true game changer from, you know, in the defensive front. Does not mean that Brad Holmes won't find somebody. But when you're looking at guys like Trevonde Sweat and Murphy, those are two guys that are high on my list right now. You know, there's some other guys like Jared Verse, Dorloose, and a few others, Trice. They could also be big-time game changers. I look at the size and everything first, and then I look at the tape. But I really think that we're priced out of the market after 29. This is not a deep draft. So for that reason, I said I felt like the market changed for the Detroit Lions, and now they're going to be shopping second-tier guys. So obviously, AJ Epinesa is my number one. Good evening, Bucky McBadbat. DCW7777. I'll get to you guys in just a moment. I promise. Mile marker 301. What's happening? But anyway, so Risdon goes on to say that the Lions will likely see some significant changes to their pass rush, group this offseason. And if you think about it, I mean, we just lost Julian Okwara. He's now an Eagle. And now you have Charles Harris and Romeo that more than likely aren't going to be coming back. So there's three, right? There's three rotational players, practice squad guy, tweener, sometimes up and down off the roster guy, and Julian that we need to replace. You guys know Brad as well as I do. What's his number one goal? It's improvement, right? Upgrading year over year. He wants this team to get better. So if that comes through the free agency market with second tier guys, that's great. We still need a game changer, whether it's a DT or a DE. One of those has to be a game changer this offseason. But you're also talking about productive veterans. And that's what Risdon was talking about with this quote here. He says, with the Lions overhauling the edge position, Julian Okwara is already in Philly, and both his brother Romeo and Charles Harris are free agents. I don't expect them to come back. The Lions, I guess they could, cap friendly, 1-year deal. You're going to be a practice squad guy, and that's about it. If we suffer a ton of injuries, you might make the roster. That's how I see that happening. The Lions could be in the market for a more productive veteran looking for one last shot at a Super Bowl, and that's Smith. And we're talking about Za'Darius Smith. Risdon noted that Smith appears to be getting little attention ahead of the start of free agency in March, especially for a player who has 15.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. That could be in part because of his drop-off in 2023, when Smith had just 5.5 sacks and 27 total tackles while playing alongside the more productive Myles Garrett. I would have loved to have had another guy on this defensive line getting 5.5 sacks. That's an improvement over what we had. It's definitely an improvement over those 3 guys that I just said. I think combined, those 3 didn't even have 5.5 sacks. So this would be a good option. I'm not saying he's a perfect fit, but he might be someone that can come in, in a lower cap dollar, looking to make a Super Bowl run. And let's be crazy for a moment. The Lions are Super Bowl contenders in 2024. They're in the top 5 teams, as far as odds, I haven't checked today, but as far as odds to make it to the Super Bowl. And I believe in that. I really do. He goes on to say that Smith could be a strong addition to the team that struggled to find a consistent pass rusher, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Now, Aiden Hutchinson, you guys know I'm a mixed bag on him at times. Great dude. All the gifts in the world athletically, just needs a good squad around him so he can produce. And I believe the minute we add a good squad around him and another edge rusher, we're going to see Aiden explode. And when that happens, that's when this defense takes the next step. When you can't shut down Aiden, it's going to be a bad season for every single one of our opponents. And that's why we need a game changer. I just don't have the faith that we're going to go out and sign a $25 million guy. I think that it's going to be 2, 3, or 4 guys, that in that $5 to $8 million range that Brad Holmes is going to be targeting so that he can fill the roster with upgrades. Remember, it's upgrades. It's not the shiniest toy. It's not the fastest car. It's just an upgrade. You're going from a Chevy Malibu to a Chevy Impala. You know what I mean? It's just an upgrade. That's all it is. All right, let's check out the chat. See how you guys are all doing tonight. You guys are lighting it up already. DCW says, all should know by now. You just don't know what Brad will do. Just wait and see. It's very true. You can get close with some things, but man, he likes to pull rabbits out of hats, don't he? Robert Welch said he had to resub like crazy. That is crazy. Appreciate you coming back. Just make sure you check all of the other people that you follow, because I noticed the same thing too. A lot of people that I was subscribed to disappeared, or they were personalized, meaning I wasn't getting anything. Robert also says, I believe our guys are all about the winning. Restructuring might go smoothly where it pops up. I believe in that too. I think there's some guys on this team that are more about winning than they are about anything else. They're still going to get paid. So what? You don't get that extra $500,000 or $1 million this year. You're going to get it next year. I mean, you're still getting $1 million this year or more. I think you're going to be okay. Lone Spoon 77 says, I think we should get away with a high quality defensive end from the draft. I think we should get a vet with good production in free agency for a cornerback. Make sure I understand what you're saying here. You're saying that you would rather not go after a defensive end in free agency and go after a cornerback and target a DE in the draft? Because if that's what you're saying, that's kind of where I'm at too. And even if it's flip-flop, that's okay. It's either way, I think we'll be okay. If we get a shutdown DE or a really good corner, we're upgrading. We're upgrading 2 spots that are, definitely our right and left Achilles heel in 2023. So in my opinion, I would rather get a corner. It's hard to find a really good corner, and it's even harder to know that the corner you just drafted is going to be good. Like, we got super lucky with Brian Branch, but that's also the work that Brad Holmes, and believe it or not, Lance, all the work that entire team did in 2023 and prior, looking at these guys, landed Branch to us knowing he was going to be a pretty good ball player. Bucky McBadbat says, if Goff is being extended, St. Brown should be packaged in a trade to move up for Marvin Harrison. Oh, is that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Odunze? Oh my gosh, dude, you would set Detroit ablaze with a trade like that. But you know what? That's the first time I've heard somebody saying trade St. Brown. I've said don't pay the guy $25 million. Maybe you offer him a 1-year, extension for now and saying, look, you deserve a $15 million payday. We're just going to give you 15 on top of what you're making now. And we're going to spread it out over 3 seasons with a void year, but you're going to get, 7.5 this year and 7.5 next year, but it's just spread out over 3 seasons. And let's talk about this again next year. That's what I would do if I was Brad Holmes. I would not be sinking $25 million into St. Brown right now. All right. Give me 1 second. All right, excuse me. I'm on the tail end of this sinus infection, so second round of antibiotics, man, and yeah, not fun, but at least I feel better. Just got stuff hanging around. Robert Welch says, man, the more we talk about it, the more it seems like we have a bunch of positions to fill. We do. I mean, we literally do. I mean, our offensive line, I think that the Lions are going to go heavy in the offensive line during this draft. 1, because this draft is set up for offensive linemen. But 2, we have some big holes to fill. Both guard positions, a tackle position in a year. I mean, you have to start looking now. And you might as well really elevate your second-tier squad, your second-tier guys, get a major upgrade this year and be ready for them next year. Shadow Viper. Hey, that's a new name. 619. How you doing tonight? He says, I'm at the beginning, but I'm here. Thank you. I appreciate you joining tonight. Lone Spoon 77 says, yes, it takes longer to train that rookie cornerback than a rookie defensive end. Very true. It's harder to run backwards than it is to run forward, right? Looks like I'm finally catching up here. Robert Welch says, if we could really, if we get a really good corner that can rush when we need it, then we can kind of split up the sacks. That way we split up the sacks. Basically, our pass rush just has to get better no matter what, no matter how we do it. It's a good statement. I think I understand what you're saying there. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it, man. And I'm feeling good. Just, I had a brain MRI and they found that there was some stuff in the mastoid. And so they put me on antibiotics just to make sure. Then we'll recheck it in a couple weeks. But could be why this sinus infection hung around so long. Donkey Kong says we need a cornerback in free agency and one in the draft, first 3 rounds for sure. And I agree. Did you guys have a chance to check out Hayden yet? Kamal Hayden. This guy's going to fly up the draft board. I promise you. I am putting out a video tomorrow, and you're going to love it. This guy is a baller, and right now he's a mid to late round guy. So I think he's going to fly up into the late second round, maybe. He should be available for the Lions, and I would not be mad if we picked him up. J Mommy says St. Brown isn't going anywhere. Yeah, you don't want J Mommy getting in on the St. Brown talk. Harrison will be gone before the Lions pick. Why trade an all-pro receiver who works with the other receivers? Doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't. It doesn't. You know, you got to remember too that when I talk about stuff, we're just talking to talk, right? I'm not going to put a rubber stamp on it. I'm not going to put the Will Rock lock on it that I think that this is going to happen unless I think it's going to happen. I don't think that St. Brown's going anywhere. I really don't. But you also have to remember that this is a business too. Just like the whole Jared Goff conspiracy talk that was, you know, happening the last couple of weeks. It started with the Rams wire, and I picked it up and kept running with it a little bit. But Jared Goff is worth a lot of money right now in cap assets. So why wouldn't Brad Holmes want to move Jared Goff? He probably wouldn't. I'm just speculating here, right? We're talking. Why wouldn't you want to move him for 2 firsts and a third, just like you did with Matt, Stafford? And you have Hendon Hooker sitting there that can probably play, and then you bring in another quarterback in the draft that will be available at 29. I mean, if you really want to shake everything up, save a bunch of money in cap, bring in a bunch of, high draft picks again, this team would be loaded forever. But I don't see us moving on from Goff. I think that would be crazy. I think the worst thing that could happen to Goff this year is they don't extend him this year. And then they franchise tag him next year. That's the worst possibility, I think, for Goff right now. That they don't re-sign him this year, they franchise him next year. But I think that that's kind of slim to none too. I think they'll get a deal done. I think Goff is going to play ball, and he's going to want to, leave the Lions with some ability and accept trust on their behalf that they're going to get him done. Robert Welch says possibly 0 picks in the first round. All right, let's talk about that one for just a moment. Tyler DeClark, that's a new name. Hey, welcome in tonight. So 0 picks in the first round. How pissed would you guys be? I did a video. I didn't release it. Derek put one out, so I didn't release mine. I will release mine in a couple days. But how pissed would you guys be if you're sitting down there at the draft in Brad Hall? You hear they come over and they tell us all that the Lions have traded at 29. We didn't trade the first 28 picks, but we traded at 29 and back down, and we get picks on day 2, but multiple picks on day 2. I would be furious, but I got to tell you, I would not be surprised. Just as much as I wouldn't be surprised that Brad does that, I would not be surprised if Brad jumps into the top 18 of this draft. I know I'm going to blow my whole video, but here's why. There's some more nuggets in the video, so I won't give it all. But essentially, you have to look at what Brad's done the last few seasons. And he's a player. Like, he moves up, he moves down, he does whatever he has to do. I don't think he's really ever sat on a pick. I think he's always trying to move. I think he's always on the phone, trying to trade every single pick he has for something. He'll trade 157 for 158 and, 230. He doesn't care. Even if it's in 2026, he'll take it. He'd rather stack the picks. So I do believe, given the fact that this team is so close, and given how this draft is so slim, you guys remember how Brad said last season, I think the number was 14. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that he said that there wasn't more than 14 first round grades, and that Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell were one of the 14, or both were inside that 14. And for that reason, he said, next, I wanted to get in, get out, and be done. That was his whole draft strategy last year. The funny thing is, is there's better quarterbacks in this class than there was last year. So you're going to have a little bit of a run on quarterbacks, in the top 10 for sure, in the top 5. And that's going to push things down a little bit. It's going to send a few guys, south towards pick 29, but they're not going to last past pick 18 from what I've seen so far. So given that theory in how this is a light draft, I see Brad Holmes doing the opposite this year and jumping forward. I think that he's going to try to climb up into the top 18, knowing that he's only going to end up with one guy that is a first round grade in his opinion. Remember, that's Brad's opinion. And that might come out after the draft. Like, he always says after the draft, how he felt about the draft. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to end up with some good guys later on. But let's think about it realistically. Now I'm giving away the video. We only need 2 impact players. Remember last year we needed 2 impact players, and Brad said that. We got 4. This year we only need 2. Think about it. Defensive end or defensive tackle. One of those 2. We need one of those 2 to be a hit in the draft. Cornerback. Those are the 2 guys that we need, and that's it. That would propel this defense, a couple of notches. It would give us sustained success, right, for the future. And then in free agency, we need to do the same thing. We need to hit on a defensive end, defensive tackle, and a cornerback in free agency. And that way this team has veteran leadership and young leadership coming up. But that's all we have to hit on. So what makes you think that Brad is going to want to draft 7 times in this draft? Maybe he only wants 4 picks. And maybe he wants all those picks inside the top 3 rounds. That's why I think he's going to move up. And we're probably going to lose a little bit of 2025 draft capital. But they're going all in this year. I believe it. I hope they are, because this is the year to do it. You've got just about everybody retained on this roster that matters. And it's time to go for it. So it's going to be tough. All right. Next topic, and then I'm going to jump back into the chat, is, the Lions are already making some additions to the defense. So we know that this is a top priority. I did a video on Matthew Betts, or Matu Betts. I think it's Matthew, or Matu, not Matthew. Or Madiu. I can't say his name. But anyway, Betts is in Detroit. And so it shows you that Brad is already looking at options to make this team better. Now, is Betts a top tier guy? Well, maybe in Canada, but not here. We don't know what he is yet. So he's in that second tier, can't body until he shows us differently. I believe that he has all of the traits, the intangibles, the work ethic, everything. Hard worker. You can go watch the video if you haven't seen it, and you'll see everything that I'm talking about. Guy is super intelligent, and he reads the snap very well, very, very well. So 7 Detroit Lions contracts that were automatically voided. This is what I was speaking to earlier. So last week, this voided contracts means that these guys can now talk with the Lions on contract extension. They don't have to wait until free agency. So Teddy Bridgewater, which we know retired, Graham Glasgow, Vaitai, which I'm sure he's gone, Charles Harris, Romeo Quara, Emmanuel Mosley, and CJ Gardner-Johnson, they can all talk to the Lions right now and coming back. As far as talking to other teams, they have to wait until the 11th. But it opened up a conversation that, these voided contracts, they added another, $12 million in dead cap this year. And that's what I was saying, earlier in the show, is that it dwindled our cap availability. So when you add it all together, these 7 players account for, $14.3 million in dead cap. Now, it was planned on. We knew it was coming. I forgot about it. But again, these are cap hits that Brad Holmes was expecting, and they were factored into the budgeting, for this upcoming offseason. So when we saw that big number, and Spotrac was not counting the dead cap that was about to hit, it was only saying we had $1 million in dead cap the entire season, just about. And now it shot up because of these contracts. So I wish that Spotrac would add a future dead cap number, because for some reason I missed it. And now I learned from my mistake, and now I'll be looking, that much harder the next time. But out of all these guys, who do we want back? There's only one, right? Graham Glasgow, for sure, but potentially CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I'm not so sure that Graham Glasgow or CJ Gardner are going to come back very cheap. And when you look at a player by the name of Andrew Van Ginkel, yes, he's on the list to talk about tonight. He's probably going to get paid, and now I'm not expecting him to be an option in Detroit either, much like these guys. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to retain a couple of these guys, but that's why the Lions have to hit on those two positions, just those two. And if they knock it out of the park with those two positions, we're going to be just fine. All right. So Bucky McBadbat says, if you trade an all-pro receiver, then you're looking at paying Goff $50 million per year. You're going to pay $75 to $80 million on two players. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big number. So if you want to talk about that for just a moment, here's what I'll say. I'm not all in on paying St. Brown, and it's not against St. Brown. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's perfect for the city. Great teammate, right? I mean, he has everything that you want. You couldn't ask more out of the guy. But it's coming off of that $25 million that I have a problem with, especially when you utilize a roster like I do that I built called Roster Roulette. So St. Brown is now entering his fourth season. Let's say he was a first-round draft pick. Should have been based on his output, his production. But let's say he was a first-round draft pick. This is the season that you're adding another first-round wide receiver or second-round wide receiver, somebody that you think can become a number one. And the reason why is because then you're injecting a low cap guy, and the high cap guy, you either limp him along, franchise him, or he disappears in free agency. So you have him now. You don't have to do anything with his contract. He's now, after his third full season, so you can renegotiate his contract and give him an extension, but you don't have to. I think it would be a bad move. I think it would be a bad PR move for the Lions. I think that it would restrict players wanting to come to Detroit if they didn't pay the guys that earned it. And he did earn it. He's earned every red cent of it. He really has. But if you look at the business side of things, you would be unwise not to put another one in the funnel to be ready for contract negotiations to break down, which brings me to the question. When do you sign your big target free agents or extend your big target, contracts like your Goff or your St. Brown? Do you wait till after the draft? Because you don't have to do anything right now. They're not going anywhere. It's not like another team can come in and sign them away from you. The free agents, yes, but not the guys that are under contract. So do you wait till you do what you do in free agency and then the draft to then have that conversation? Because if you do really well and you get a really good receiver like a Brendan Rice in the third round, I don't expect him to be there, but let's say you do. That guy could end up replacing St. Brown and be just as good. No guarantees, but he has all the intangibles. So then you got a cheap guy for $1 million a year versus $25 million. That $25 million could get you Danielle Hunter, who everybody wants. Now, it doesn't really work that way. It's not, one for one trade-off because you've got void years. It's spread out. It doesn't end up being $25 million the first year. Typically you're looking at about a 20% of the overall AAV in this first year. So if you got $25 million, you'd probably expect them to be good for about $10 million this year, roughly. And the rest of it would be, signing bonus together, all strung along for a few years. Robert Welch says, I'm back and forth on CJ, but if we're trying to get a shutdown corner, it'd be nice to have him there backing him up. I much rather would have Brian Branch at this point, to be honest with you, backing him up, because I didn't see enough out of CJ. And I think maybe you would agree or not agree, but I think that CJ's a good player based on what he did previously. I mean, the guy was great. He had 6 interceptions before he came to Detroit in that Super Bowl run with the Eagles. He didn't do squat this year. I think he had one interception. And he didn't do squat because he was hurt. So you kind of left wanting more. You didn't know, is that really the type of play we're going to get out of him? Is, when he's fully healthy, is he going to be a lot better? But, he went through 4 games since week 18, and he just didn't play that well. He didn't have great grades at all. So for that reason, I'm on the fence. I think he's a great character. I think he's a great locker room guy. I think that, his vocal leadership is great on the team. Some people would say it could go too far, but I think that some of that stuff is needed. It just has to be, the right time, right? Robert Welch says, if we don't have to mess with St. Brown right away, then we probably shouldn't. I mean, we're right on the fence. The guy's entering his last year. We can always franchise him next year, but that franchise tag is going to be probably pretty close to 23 million. So it'd be about what he's going to get on the market. Now, if you franchise him with a first round grade, or you tender him with a first round grade or something like that, then who's going to be smart enough or dumb enough to come and snatch him? I bet you somebody would. Salary cap is annoying. It is. Randy P says, is it crazy to think that adding 2 good defensive linemen will be enough to roll with the cornerbacks we have now? Great question. So, and I'm sure you know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. A great defensive front can make a porous defensive back look good. So the answer is yes, it could. If you're getting a ton more sack, if we doubled our sack output next year, then we could roll with who we have. I don't think it's wise, and I don't think a lot of the guys are going to stick around. Like, I don't think a lot of our guys are going to, that were on the team are going to be sticking around. I really don't. Like Will Harris, Jacobs, I think those guys are gone. I really do, and probably for good reason. But then again, if they come back on a cheap deal, Tracy Walker, I mean, 12.8 million or whatever he's due this year. Some people got it wrong in some of their videos that, we could save 12 million by cutting him. No, because a lot of that is bonus money, and it's going to, go towards the cap anyway. The most you could save is 5.5 million by cutting him. If you restructured his deal and said, hey, look, your bonus money is what it is. It's going to count no matter what, but we'll give you 2 million to play this year. So then you could keep the player and still save, 3.5 million and see if he can make the roster. I think that's a much better, more wise decision. And then you also have him for trade bait. You can always trade him later. You could potentially trade him, in the draft. And that could happen. He may just need an extra season to get healthy. I mean, he came back from a pretty bad injury too last season, and he just wasn't himself. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, it is saying a lot for Sutton. Yeah, it is. But I also believe that Sutton was never supposed to be our number 1. I think that Sutton was supposed to be our number 2 if Mosley was healthy. I think the unfortunate thing is Mosley was injured, and we didn't have an opportunity to see what those guys could do together. So for that reason, Sutton kind of got hung out to dry. He's not a number 1 corner in my eyes. I'm sure he is in his eyes, and I'm sure Brad and Dan would disagree with me, and that's okay. I'm just going to say what they always say. Look at the tape, because the tape will tell you everything, right? They probably get a good chuckle out of that. Oh, there he is. Yes, Van Ginkel is getting paid. And just because he joined the chat, Derek, Lion Syndicate, what's up, buddy? All right, I found this article today. And I had to bring it up because, Derek is the guy that founded Van Ginkel. last season and started talking about him being a perfect fit for the Detroit Lions. And quite honestly, he is. I don't know why my screen's going crazy. Hold on here. 1 second. He is a great fit. You know, he is a Brad and Dan kind of guy. But this article, as soon as it'll pull up, it's just in freak out mode for some reason. I think too many ads are trying to play. Wow. Let me pull up a new one. You know, you even turn on all of these ad blockers and it still goes haywire. If I could pay Google to have no ads ever, I would. And it just did it again with a brand new article. All right, here we go. So the title of this, and this is by Dolphins Wire, says Dolphins free agent profile, what to do with linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel. Here, I'm going to pull it in because you guys are going to, I want to make sure you don't think I'm full of poop. Give me 1 second. I found this interesting how much money they're thinking this guy's going to get. All right. So the Dolphins had 29 players set to hit free agency this year. And none of them have expressed as much of a desire to return as linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel. Miami selected Van Ginkel, who's 28, in the 5th round of the 2019 NFL draft. Following his collegiate career that spanned with 3 different schools, South Dakota, Iowa, Western, and Wisconsin. Iowa Western being one word or 2 separate words, same college. So anyway, since joining the Dolphins, Van Ginkel has recorded 250 tackles. These numbers are crazy. 31 for loss, 57 quarterback hits, 17 passes defended, 21 passes defended, 17 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 3 recovered fumbles, and 2 interceptions. This dude is an absolute dog. And you know what? He wasn't even supposed to play that much this year. And this article talks about that right here. I think it says after seeing his role reduced in 2022, just 29% of the team's defensive snaps, he was asked to play a lot more in 2023 because, one, it was a scheme switch, and partially because of injuries to their key edge rushers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. So he obviously filled in, like the article says, admirably, netting a career high in sacks with 6 and seeing his quarterback hits spike to 19. So now he's set to hit free agency. He's made it clear that he wants to be back, but he's looking for a multi-year deal. And that's what this article is stating, that a multi-year deal is going to end up paying Van Ginkel $7 to $8 million a season. That blew my mind because I was expecting maybe low 4s to high 5s per season. But if you almost double that to $8 million, I think that prices Brad Holmes out of the market unless he really thinks that this guy is that good and that he's going to play that good in our scheme. So that's the biggest question. Anyway, this goes on to say not much more, but the Dolphins are also in cap purgatory. They got some big considerations with the cap this year. So I'm looking for guys like, Wilkins to be an option for the Lions. No guarantee they could tag him. But there's options over there in Miami. And with them, having some issues with the cap, those are some of the teams that are going to get poached. The Bills are another team that has a lot of cap considerations. And that's why I think AJ Epinesa is a great fit. And I also, said in the video the other day that, Bean might let him test free agency. I just think that they're going to approach him with a minimal offer and he's, going to go test free agency. And what a better player to have come to Detroit, than someone that plays for the Bills. We're friendly with the Bills. So I think he understands what kind of organization that we are. And we need to be clamoring as much as possible for somebody like AJ Epinesa on the internet so he sees that we want him, I wanted to look something up right quick. I don't know what defense Miami runs. I know it's the Nick Fangio defense, which is probably pretty close to what the Lions run. So they use a lot of quarters, which we used a lot of quarters this year. It would appear that they use the 3-4, so they're going to have more linebackers on the field. And we're in a 4-3. Does not mean that Van Ginkel wouldn't have success. Does not mean that. Just means that it's a little bit different scheme that he's used to. So he would do well, when we have more backs in, when we are in, like a 3-4 look or 4-2-5. That's more DBs. Maybe he would do better if there's just two linebackers, in the game. But I don't think that you're going to move on from Jack Campbell and Anzalone. So it'd be an interesting fit. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But I think the Lions are going to be priced out of the market. I see a lot of smiley faces. So what happened? The Van Twinkle effect? Is that what happened? Or whatever Derek calls them. Ryan Van Valkenburg says Betts will be a nice piece. I think he will too. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I really do. Donkey Kong says Glasgow is definitely coming back, man. I hope so. So he's somebody that's going to probably be in that 7 to 8, a year on a 2-year deal. And I'm good with that. I really am. Matter of fact, there's another guy, since we're talking about Miami players, there's another guy that fits into this really well. Robert Hunt. So he's someone that, with the way that Miami is going to have to deal with some of their players this year, he's someone that's more than likely also going to be, testing the free agency market, and the Dolphins may not be able to retain him. So here's the question. Would you rather have Jonah Jackson come back if you could get him, for the same price as Robert Hunt? Now, when Robert Hunt was in and playing this year, he was a top 6 guard in the league. I don't think Jonah was anywhere near that. He had a lot of bad grades in plenty of games. But I would say, when you look at the guard class this year, he's not even on most guys' boards in free agency in the top 10. So if he's not anywhere in the top 10, but yet he's going to command, somewhere between $10 and $12 million a year, maybe more. I'm sorry, but I think Robert Hunt would be a much better option, between that $10 and $12 million mark. So I guess let me put that into the chat, and we'll do our first poll of the night. And that is Robert Hunt at 12 million versus Jonah Jackson at 12 million. Which one? And what this is going to be, since I did a poll that says yes and no for some reason, I don't know why. I don't know why yes and no is even in there, because I'm an idiot. So yes will be for Robert Hunt, and no will be for Jonah Jackson. So yes for Robert Hunt or no for Jonah Jackson. Which one would you keep? There we go. Maybe someday I'll learn how to use these YouTube polls. The sprinkle of Van Ginkel. That's what he calls it. There we go. I was forgetting for a minute. Yeah, the Derekism. You guys are crazy funny. Apache. Hey, that's a pretty cool name, man. Like it. You're new tonight, so welcome in tonight. Appreciate it. Yeah, Lions Syndicate, Derek. It's not 3 seasons at 8 million. I promise you, buddy. If I could put this article in the chat, I would, but it's on Dolphins Wire. And yeah, I was blown away by it too. I mean, normally I don't read stuff on Van Ginkel a whole lot, but I read it today and I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. But I was even more blown away by Robert Hunt, becoming available. So the article states, this is what it says the Miami Dolphins, again, have 29 players set to hit free agency. Hunt, who's 27 years old, was selected by the Dolphins in the second round of 2020. As a rookie, Hunt began his time with the Dolphins at right tackle before settling in at right guard. I love the versatility. So does Brad Holmes. But he's been at right guard for the final 3 seasons. So he's improved year over year, topping out at a 77.1 grade in 2023, making him the 6th highest graded guard in the NFL. So before I shoot my mouth off, right, let's see what Jonah Jackson rated this season. Hey, appreciate you, Apache. Liked and subscribed. Love it, man. If you want to take it a step further, like I warned everybody earlier today, for some reason, YouTube is removing people's subscription notifications. No, I'm not just saying this to say it. It happened to me. I checked all of mine. They were all unpersonalized. So something that they do with updates, it happens. I read about it, that it does happen every so often, and it happened to me. All right. So Jonah Jackson in 2023. You guys aren't going to believe this. Like, he had a terrible season. 2023, he's graded out at a 59.7 overall. Pass blocking 62.7, run blocking 58.2. And he's projected to get between 10 and 12 million. Let's look at Robert Hunt. Actually, before I do that, let's look at 22. In 22, he was a little bit better, 66.1 overall, better in run blocking. I do like his run blocking, and he does work well on this line, but his grades are just terrible. So he downgraded from, year over year. He didn't get better. And Robert Hunt in 2022, wow, 70, all green, mid 70s all the way around, 76.2 in run blocking, 73.7 overall. Now, obviously, I'd have to go look at the tape. He played a ton of snaps last year, 1,055. That is a ton of snaps. Only allowed 3 sacks. Had 11 penalties, though. So that last year, that's a bad season with penalties. But I guess if you look at his snap ratio, that's less than 10% or whatever, 1%. But you look at this year, 77.1. I mean, guy had an incredible season, only allowed 1 sack, 2 penalties. Great season, but he only played half the snaps. So, in my opinion, you don't pay Jonah Jackson. You let him hit free agency for this reason alone. Yes, to your point, Derek, if somebody pays Van Ginkel $8 million, they should be fired. So if Brad Holmes pays them $8 million, I'm expecting that video, and I'll get my popcorn ready. Don't you worry. Ryan Van Valkenburg. Yeah, I don't know why all the guys, try to look like Clay Matthews. That's funny. Better the Hunt says, didn't Jonah's backup do a decent job? Next man up mentality. So Coyote Awosika, he had an okay game. Since we're looking, let's look. He had an okay game that last game, but other than that, he's pretty much been a sieve his entire career. Let me share this again. So in 2023, he got in 252 snaps, so half as many as Robert Hunt. Screen's freaking out. Sorry. So half as many as Robert Hunt. Overall, 59.8. Now, if we were to look at his game stats, For some reason, it doesn't look like it's sharing the screen again. Probably because I'm into a different screen. Let me look by game. So that would have been the conference championship, Lions, and I'll bring it up. I'll show you. All right, so here we go. These are all the grades for the conference championship versus San Francisco. And here, let me just whittle this down a little bit. So Quixote Awosika is down at the bottom. 53.2 offense overall, 54.6 in run block, and 48 in pass block. He played 72 snaps. So that's my big, and I mean, Dan Skipper was even worse. And then Anthony Ferksker, tight end. I forgot he even played that game. So that's why I'm thinking that we're going to have, you know, heavy offensive line type of draft this season. You know, there's, I don't know how many hundreds of free agents this year, but this draft is set up for offensive linemen. And I'm not going to get into all of those tonight. Steve K says, sorry, late Van Ginkel 100. Hey, at least you could join right when I'm about to close up shop here in just a few moments. Andrew Wilson says, who is the 99 guy on the front page? Can someone help me out? Who's the 99 guy on the front page of what, buddy? I'm sorry. What am I missing? Oh, Za'Darius Smith. Yes. So did you jump in late a little bit? So there's the big rumor mill going around that Za'Darius Smith is pegged to the Detroit Lions as a veteran to join this team. Now he's like, what, 32 years old, went into a lot of it earlier. But given the fact that the Lions are going to be shopping this mid-tier market, Za'Darius Smith is an option. He's at the end of his career, but he's probably, you know, ring hunting at this point. So he's going to take a deal, hopefully, to join a team and, you know, give it his last hurrah. And he's still got some, you know, some gas in the tank. And I do believe that, you know, he is somebody that could have some potential at the right price. Let's look at his overall stats. While you brought him up again, let's look him up. I'll pull it up on PFF. Let's just see if this guy's worth the flyer. And I would say right away he is. All right. So snap count. Let's look at that this year. I don't understand how total snaps can be 0, but then it says he has 178 for run defense and 387 in pass rush. I think they screwed up. Wow, PFF is failing big time. Let me pull it up into a different screen. So obviously he is 6'4", 275, defensive end, edge. And we're going to look at his defensive grade charts here. So great game against the Bengals, good game against Pittsburgh. I mean, he had pretty good games the entire season. A lot of green, a lot of blue. It's a pretty darn good season. Pretty good grades. 92.2 versus Houston. And so entering the league, 6'4", 275, 4.83 speed. So, you know, not terribly slow. He'll be 32 years old, I believe, by the time that the season starts. His birthday is in September. selected round 4, 122 overall. But you know as well as I do that this you know, NFL is all about what have you done for me lately. So this season, he had a total of 61 pressures. I'll take it. We need it, right? I'm good for that. We don't need 100 and some coming out of just Aiden. We need it spread around a little bit. He had 15 quarterback hits, 40 hurries. 40 hurries? That can't be right. 40 hurries. Hold on here. Let me pull up something real quick. Another player. Okay. So Aiden Hutchinson had 79 hurries, 121 pressures. Za'Darius Smith had 40 hurries. So about half as much as Hutchinson. And also half as much total pressure. If you look at his overall output, what I want to know is his snap count. So he only played 603 snaps this entire season. Aiden Hutchinson, just take a guess. Double. 1,146. So I guess what I'm seeing here is this. Here's my overall on Za'Darius. I mean, from the paper, on paper, he's good. Let's see what Spotrac wants to give Za'Darius Smith, and then let's see if this makes sense. So his last deal, right now he is set to make, wow, total cap hit of right around 3 million. Is this really correct, Spotrac? I'll go over the cap. Give me just a second. Sorry for the pause. All right, so it is right. His cap number in 2024 is a void year, so it's nothing. So he is a free agent, and he was only making $3 million last year. So he's got a lot of dead cap, a lot of things that are hitting this contract this year, obviously to his former team. But the point is, you could probably pick him up somewhere between, 3 to 7 million at the most, 3 to 7. He had a pretty good year. He played half as many snaps as Aiden Hutchinson, had exactly half as much output. So what does that tell you? That tells me that he still can do it. And if you can get him that cheap, you add a Za'Darius Smith to this team and AJ Epinesa to this team, and you have those two rotate, I think you're good, because he's clearly only getting in about 50% of the snaps. And that's a rotational edge player. And that's why his contract is going to be quite a bit lower too, versus what he's actually worth if he were to play more. So you bring in two rotational guys and then a third guy for backup, and our defensive line is going to be set until we hit the draft. That's why I don't see Brad Holmes really jumping out the box to sign a big name guy. That doesn't mean that he's not going to try. Doesn't mean that he's not going to offer, one of these guys. But I still believe, with some of these guys around, it makes sense to grab some that, are still going to give you some production, not break the bank, but you could probably bring in a game changer for a cornerback in the free agent market first. So that's why I think that he makes good sense. We'll see what happens. We'll see. He's only 32, and like Derek said the other day, man, he's still the baby in Brad's eyes, right? Yeah, Yodi's terrible. I just seen your comment. Yeah, Yodi is terrible. All right. Let me take a few more questions before we bounce off tonight. Robert Welch says if the price is right, there's no way he's off Brad's radar. Yeah, not with those stats. And you got to remember too that the big difference is he's working across from Myles Garrett. So his numbers have, dropped quite a bit because Myles Garrett's getting, Myles Garrett had a crazy good season. Crazy good. I can't remember what award he won at the honors, but it was a pretty darn good award. But anyway, working across from somebody like Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett is, taking up multiple blockers. That means, Za'Darius Smith actually had somewhat of a free run most times. And he's only in there 50% of the time. So he had somebody else working in front of him. So again, you put that similar situation in Detroit where you've got Aiden Hutchinson, who now offenses aren't going to be able to give Aiden as much, assets. They're going to have to pay attention to Smith as well. Too many Z's. They're going to have to pay attention to Smith as well. And then, you have to worry about Jack Campbell. And you also have to worry about Brian Branch. Those guys that will come off the ends and, are off in the slot. Iffy, same thing. When we get into that deeper quarters look, these guys can come from all directions. I mean, Alex Anzalone, he'll get his licks into, and then you got to Lee McNeil this, for one more season. So look, the Lions are prime, just two more prime impact players. And I think that we're going to be just fine. I really do. We need some cast, some role players, rotational players that can help this team out. And they're there. I think that Brad Holmes is going to be shopping at Marshall's instead of the Dollar General. Like Derek says, we're going to upgrade just a little bit this year. Might make our way into, Fifth Street, Saks, whatever it's called. Nordstrom Rack, we'll bump it up just a little bit. It's the difference between going Target to Marge, Meyer, whatever you want to call it. Instead of Target, it's Marge. I don't know. I think it's time to hang it up tonight. Yeah, Brad did have his chance at Za'Darius last year, but for whatever reason, he didn't take it. I'll never know that. I'll never know the answer. Joshua Baker says, I think Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year. There you go. Thank you. And then, we can't forget about Betts. Thanks, J Mommy. Can't forget about Betts. I mean, the guy has so much upside. I know I'm going to say it again, but don't forget to watch the video I put out on Betts because there's some good things that I pointed out in there and that it's not everything. The guy has electric speed, even though he only runs, I think it's like a 4.8 or something like that. I can't remember. He does have really good speed. He's got better playing speed than he does speed on paper. And then you notice that about some players. They play way different than they do, running at a pajama Olympics. It's just different. Some guys get clocked faster in a GPS on field than they ever did in a 40. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. D-Town Heat, that's the new name. Welcome in tonight. Rob Newsom, how you doing? Says Brad is going to be shopping at 5 and below this offseason. You know what? It's not 5 and below anymore. I was in there looking for Lion stuff before we went to the conference championship, and it's not 5 and below anymore. It's like 5 and up. They've got, racks of $15, $20 stuff. I couldn't believe it. Like, it only took a little bit of time for them to get you reeled in, and then you get in, and now it's like, it's not 5 and below anymore. They got to change the name. Better the hunt. That reminds me, better your hunt this winter or this spring or wherever you're hunting that is cold. Check out C3 Mitts today. That's C3MITTS.com today. I do believe they're still running any 3 mitts for $75, normally $59.95 a piece. Awesome mitts that you can attach to your firearm, your bow, your crossbow, and don't let your mitts get cold, right? Don't let your hunt end too soon. Stay out in the woods longer with C3Mitts.com. Check them out today. So I think that's it for tonight. You guys have been excellent. I don't know. What do we have? 160 people in tonight. So pretty good show. Off the Cuff is back. We're running on Sunday nights and Friday nights right now. I'm going to add a couple of more nights. And don't forget, at Rockdown Syndicate, check out the YouTube channel. Everything is listed there for you now. So you can click and subscribe. And check us out on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings at 8:30 in the morning. And we got a new intro for you coming up. It's kind of exciting. and we're excited about it. So we're hopefully going to add the new software this week too, so we can get some more clips out and get you guys some videos that I've been promising you for a while. So I appreciate everyone that came in tonight to join Off the Cuff and Rock Down Detroit Lions. You guys are the best part of Rock Down Podcast Network. You're always the best sponsors and supporters of this channel, and I certainly appreciate each and every one of you. So until next time, I hope you all take care. Go One Pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.